Good morning. It's Outside the Classroom. I'm meteorologist and science teacher Ryan Miller. I have my favorite hockey team represented this week on Outside the Classroom. The theme is sports teams. Today we're wearing our hockey and our football jerseys. So please, if you're going to be watching us at home, send us a photograph on Chime In or perhaps interact with us on Facebook. We want to see what teams you're representing, whether it's football or whether it's actually hockey. But the Washington Capitals, my hockey team, proud to wear the jersey today, and welcome back. We've got a great show lined up for today and a great week lined up at that. We're going to be talking about modeling, not in the sense of doing the catwalk, but necessarily how you can make predictions and analyze the environment wherever it is that you live. So modeling is our theme this week, and we're going to be providing you some lessons, some activities that you can do at home while we're away from the classroom using simple, easy things that are around the house. So let's get right to it and look at a couple of items here. Last week we talked about our words of the day, and we're asking you to spell those words out and send us pictures of you spelling those words out or video. Fungible was one of the words that we brought up from yesterday. In fact, let me go get the word so you see what it looks like here. I'll be right back. Fungible was one of our words from last week, and we were asking folks to look the word up and to spell the word fungible. And the word fungible means to interchange or to mix things up a little bit. So that's the word from last week that people were asking about and having questions. While we're talking about words, here are our words for today. The first word is model, M-O-D-E-L. Sometimes I mix that L and the E up. Computer, even though I didn't write that really well. My handwriting is terrible. My students would certainly tell you that as well. Computer, C-O-M-P-U-T-E-R. And the last word for today is environment, the harder of the three words, E-N-V-I-R-O-N-M-E-N-T, environment. We're going to be integrating these words into today's activities and today's lessons. And so when you're listening and watching the show today, be aware and keep in mind that these words are going to show up at some point during the show. So I wanted to mention a few things here. If you are interested in anything that you can show us, if you have an activity, if you have a picture, or if you have a lesson, there are many ways for you to interact with us. Facebook is certainly one of the ways that you can send us any information if you have a question. One of the questions we're curious about, we've been keeping a list of state birds, and the state that we don't know the bird for today is Florida. So if you're watching us from Florida, or if you happen to be from Florida, or if you just want to look it up on the computer, let us know what that state bird of Florida is. I'm going to test my memory for a second. I believe the robin is the state bird of Michigan, cardinal, Ohio, cardinal in Virginia, the ruffled grouse in Pennsylvania. Rhode Island was the, I can't remember that one. South Carolina was the wild turkey, and that is testing the limits of my knowledge at the moment. But we would love to know the state bird of Florida. So let's talk about a few things here this week. We're going to be showing you and asking you to wear your sports teams, show us pictures of the words. Let's look at the theme of the week in modeling as it applies to a couple of items. Let's pull up the image here of the themes for the rest of this week, sports-wise. We have hockey and football today. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at some sports teams here related to, I believe, maybe basketball tomorrow. On Wednesdays, basketball. Thursdays, baseball. Represent your favorite teams. And then soccer on Friday. And I'll tell you what, I mentioned this last week, and I had lots of folks that have favorite soccer teams that can't wait to share and showcase their soccer jerseys. So Friday, that is your day. Please showcase and share us all of the photos that you're doing and things at home. So let's get right to it here, the idea of modeling. I'd like to pull up a couple of graphics here. Number one is, why do we model? What's the idea of modeling? So if we can go ahead and pull up that for a second, there are some reasons for modeling the world around us. Modeling helps us to analyze things like past events and to predict future outcomes. It really can give us an idea of things and allows us to make predictions on things like the weather and human behavior. So business and economic situations rely on modeling as well to make some ideas, but we can look at the behavior of organisms. And on the Outside the Classroom website, you will find this data. It's called the predator-prey modeling activity. And what you can do is go ahead and take this data and look at the data. A predator-prey relationship is something where, to give you an example, outside of our porch right here, a good example of a predator-prey relationship would be a fox and a rabbit. The fox is the predator and the prey would be the rabbit. So with that in mind, we have numbers of organisms and years, and we also have some graph paper that you can use, and there are a couple of ways that you can graph this out. This is a great way and a simple way to get right into modeling. If you use the y-axis for predator and prey numbers, and you can come up with a scale using that data, and time is the x-axis, you can graph the number of organisms and look for any relationships that show up. Look for anything that happens as the predator numbers go up, what happens to prey, or vice versa. And look for those relationships, and if you see something, then you can possibly make a prediction using this model of what would happen in the future. That's an idea for you that you can simply do at home. The other thing that you might want to do is graph predator on one axis and prey on the other. That too would be a very interesting and unique graph for you to do. So predator preys, that's one of the ways we can look at and keep the idea of modeling going here. We're going to be showing you lots of different resources today related to modeling. If you are looking for anything related to modeling, we have our website. You can simply go to WJLA.com, and if you search for the Outside the Classroom website, all of the resources that are downloadable that you can use, that are easy to do activities from home using simple things around the house to keep that learning process going. Good morning once again. I'm meteorologist and science teacher Ryan Miller with Outside the Classroom, trying to provide you some learning resources to keep that process of education going while we're all at home and away from the classroom and away from school. We are looking at the idea of modeling this week. We would like to remind you, easy for me to say here, that we have a resource at WJLA.com. If you go to the website for WJLA, there is a link to Chime In. Chime In is the easiest way to showcase and share your images and videos with us. If you click on Chime In, it pulls up a web page that has lots of different types of galleries here, but one of them is Outside the Classroom and Learning at Home. That is where you can look at and get some examples of things to do around the house. Sheila Caldwell, Highland Beach, Maryland, sent us some information here, a book that she created. Sheila, thank you. And if you're watching, we really do appreciate you contributing to this Chime In section here of the webpage. Ryan Heights also giving us some ideas of looking at pitcher plants, and this is from Oakton. Ryan, thank you. Joe Ambrosi, 7 daily images of hostas changing. We are really going through that change, that metamorphosis here in spring where plants are starting to grow. And so please show us, share with us. Let's look at all the good things that you're doing at home. But let's get right to another idea of how modeling can be applied to easy, simple things that can be done around the house. Let's pull up an image here right now. We all are probably familiar with the idea of architecture, whether architecture is used to design houses like the one that's being built behind me, or architecture that we are using here to plan out the landscapes. And so this is an example of an architecture plan. And if you're looking for something to do at home, perhaps this would be a good idea. Let's start by thinking about, well, you could model the place where you live, whether it's your apartment or your apartment building, or perhaps your townhouse. Think about using and coming up with a plan to encompass and encapsulate the place where you live. So get a piece of paper And you can certainly spend some time, and obviously this would be something requiring a straight edge and a marker, but see if you can draw, and I'm just doing this quickly and not neatly, what the place where you live looks like. And you can model the inside or outside of your home. Now, one of the things that we could do to scale this up a little bit here and to add math into the equation is using something called a scale, which is one of the ways models are representing certain things that are much bigger on a smaller piece of paper. So with modeling and using a scale, let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is 9.5 inches. So with 9.5 inches here, and this is 5.5 inches, you can come up with a scale to represent how big the things are actually in reality. So for example, if our scale is 1 inch equals 10 feet, that's our scale, then you can take and try to figure out and use math to determine the actual length of this wall or wherever it is in your house. Maybe it's the room. So to get that and to actually figure it out, if 1 inch equals 10 feet, then if you have 5.5 inches, then you can solve for x. X times 1 is x, and 10 times 5.5 would be, I bet you could figure that out and let us know. So please, if you're watching us on Facebook, let us know what 10 times 5.5 is. Or if perhaps you're at home and you want to interact with us, build a model of wherever it is you live and show us the dimensions. And let's see if you can actually give us a really good representation of all of the house, or all of the structures inside or outside of your house. That's a simple idea for you, using scales and using models to represent architecture and where we live.
Show March 7 meteorologist Rachel Kay here in my living room. I wanted to bring you another game this week, and to go along with our theme of modeling, there were a few different ideas that I had. My first thought was maybe Pictionary. Ryan mentioned the game Oregon Trail, but I wanted to introduce those of you who may not be familiar to the game Civ, or Civilization. And it's kind of modeling past civilizations and development throughout time and throughout the eras. So we're going to start a game here. I want to show you some examples of different leaders. There's a huge list here. For instance, you can play and start your civilization with the leader of Gandhi. And there we have a little bit more of a faith focus. There are so many different elements that go along with it. If you want to play as Cleopatra, then you can build a special sphinx or natural or man-made wonders of the pyramids and things like that. So a lot to look forward to as we play through the game, but we're going to start as Teddy Roosevelt, and he, of course, is the leader of America. So when we start the game, we've got a settler, we've got a builder, a scout, and we've got a warrior. So you start with a few kind of elements here, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how the settler makes a city. When I click Found City, do you want to remove the marsh on this tile? Well, we're starting as the U.S., and so our capital, our first city is going to be Washington, D.C., which, yes, was built on a marsh, so we're already learning things through this game. And there you've got D.C., and because of the size of the map that we're using here, I put it on a true Earth start. So we're in the US, but it is of course smaller. And if you kind of follow the coast, this is what we're seeing, the starts of Florida and up to the coast of Maine. So once you've been playing for a while, and you can change the speed of the game, but it might take a few hours, we start to get to a point where we've explored a little bit more. So this is another game I wanted to show you where I'm playing as Cleopatra, as Egypt. And the capital, the first city we founded was Ra Cadet, which I actually had to look up, and that was likely an original name for the city of Alexandria, which many of us have heard of. So again, you keep learning as you're playing this game and kind of modeling ancient civilizations. If I zoom out, you start to see that we have the shape of the continent of Africa. So we've explored Africa, and we've built some more cities there. We've explored north to see part of Europe, and we've met other civilizations. we start to research both in terms of science and culture. So right now I'm researching printing, I'm researching guilds. You explore and you find natural wonders. I want to zoom in here and we've got a natural wonder that my civilization discovered. This is Mount Kilimanjaro, which is in Tanzania. So you're continuing to learn as you explore throughout the game. As you continue to play throughout the game, what you'll notice is as you advance through eras, so things start to become a little bit more modern. We start to see maybe some more reflections of our current world in the game. So this is a version where I've explored. Now this is not a true Earth start, so the continents are sort of random, but I'm researching computers, opera and ballet, things that we have in our current modern day civilization. But you still have all of the elements that you build throughout the game. So remember I showed Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. We start with natural wonders, then you add man-made wonders. So I've got Petra, Jordan here. We have a seaside resort. In some of my towns here, I'm starting to research a spaceport. So there are a few different ways that you can win the game. You can win through space exploration and a science victory. You can win through a cultural and a tourism victory. You can win through a religious victory or through a domination or a war victory. So the main goal, of course, is to win the game, but I think what's more important is that if you do want to let your kids maybe play a computer game while they're at home, they're going to learn a lot by doing this. There are quotes from famous authors and philosophers that pop up throughout the game, and now you also know a little bit more maybe about me and what I might be doing during some of my time in quarantine.
And that was meteorologist Rachel Kay. Thank you, Rachel. Pretty interesting idea. Modeling, and the idea of modeling can be applied to games, to toys. We can use computer simulations to model and make predictions on what we think is going to happen, whether it's related to the weather, whether it's related to human behavior, whether it's related to pretty much anything. I mean, an example of a model here is just this balsa wood airplane that I just put together here during Rachel's package, and I had to fix it because I was a little bit clumsy with what I'm doing. But you can change the configuration of this aircraft, of this model airplane here, and if you fly it, which I didn't successfully do, that could be something where you could kind of test and measure out and use modeling to figure out how you can improve the flight, and that certainly can be improved, of that airplane. All right, I thought of this idea yesterday. I love to build things, and I also like competition, not as much as maybe some other folks here that I can think of, but here's an idea for you to do at home that's very simple, it's very easy, and it involves the idea of using modeling and building bridges and bridge design. So this actually is a win-win for pretty much everyone. We've had a lot of wind over the last couple of days here around the region, so we've had a lot of sticks fall out of the trees. So if you wanted to get some sticks that fell and send your kids out to gather the sticks, if you have a yard, get as many sticks as possible. They can be big, they can be small, but you can take the sticks and then do some research on how to build bridges and bridge design. And so challenge your kids. Let's see if we can build a bridge using sticks from a tree that fell in the yard and make that bridge as strong as possible. Now, how do you build a bridge? There's lots of different options. You can go the route of using glue, and that's what I did right here with this one. I just used some simple glue from an arts and crafts box in the kitchen. You could glue the sticks together, and you could start making bridges that way. You could use tape if you wanted to make it quickly and you didn't want to spend time. And let's face it, patience is a necessity at this moment in time here. You can use tape to make this a quick activity, or you could use string and you could start tying the pieces together, although that's a bit tricky. So there's lots of different ways that you can manufacture and make a bridge. If you start looking at and researching the designs, well, you can take sticks of all shapes and sizes. You could bend them. The thinner they are, the easier they are, they bend. And you could start coming up with designs for building bridges. When we return, we're going to talk about the competition side of this, and that's in just a moment. Thanks for watching. Good morning. Once again, this is Outside the Classroom, and I'm Ryan Miller. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been looking at the idea of modeling and how we can use modeling to learn about different things in the environment or to model how structures are built. We built some bridges here using tape, and I used some glue. And this is an idea that you can do at home. If you had a pair of scissors, you can certainly and carefully work to cut the sticks, or perhaps if you do some gardening at home, you could use a pair of clippers here, and that would make it easier to cut the sticks, or maybe even cut them with a saw. That depends on the ability level and the tools that you have at home. Nevertheless, you can scale this activity in many different ways. You can look at bridge designs, you can try your best to use different size sticks, and obviously, and it should become apparent pretty quickly, the thicker the stick that you use. And here's an example of a picture of a bridge contest that we found. But back to the idea here of the sticks that you use are going to play a role as well. Some sticks have flexibility. Some sticks are thin. Obviously, the thicker the stick, and from different trees as well, the ability of the bridge to hold more and more weight. So I have two chairs that I set up, and you can make this competition at home. How can you use sticks to try and make this work as much as possible? I have a bag right here that I tied onto it, and then once you finish building your bridges, you can start to test your bag. So you could use rocks. I'm using some rocks from the garden. You could use actually soil or sand or even gravel, or perhaps something from home, maybe even some sugar or flour. But then you can start to add weight gradually to the bag. Now, if you're using a paper bag like this, don't want to just drop your rock in. Chances are it could break. But if you start adding more and more weight, then you can determine which bridge and which bridge design is the strongest. So that's an idea and a simple thing that you can do at home. Tell you what, please let us know how your bridge building's going by sending and showcasing some pictures and images to us, and chime in. Donna on Facebook, thank you for watching. And yes, Donna, we would love to see some dance videos. Please send them our way. And Rob, the Carolina Wren, South Carolina, got it. Thank you for contributing. This is Outside the Classroom. I'm Ryan Miller. We really appreciate you tuning in. Send us your bridge pictures. Good morning. It's Outside the Classroom on this cloudy and very cool day here around the region. We had our winds shift to the north here through the overnight. So the mild air that we had yesterday, well, that mild air is now gone, and we have colder air in place, and it's going to make for a very chilly day all day long. How did I know as a meteorologist that it was going to be cold today? Well, luckily in meteorology, we use very sophisticated computers that take data from all of the different places around the globe, whether it's from a satellite or an airplane or a measurement taken by a human or a balloon. All of that data is brought together, and then that computer can make a prediction on what it thinks the weather's going to be like the next day or the day after. So a computer model, and modeling is the theme for the week, a computer model helps to make predictions on the behavior of the Earth's atmosphere. Whether we're going to be warm, cold, rain, dry, sunny, all of those things can be predicted, and we have been able to make computer models even stronger and have their resolution, meaning that their ability to predict in smaller areas becomes stronger over time. Welcome back again with Outside the Classroom. The theme this week, we've got a few themes. Number one, it's Sports Team Week, and today's theme is to wear your hockey jersey, your favorite hockey team, whether you have a t-shirt or a jersey or whatever. Maybe it's a hat. Share with us your pictures, and you can do that on Chime In of all of your hockey teams or your football teams. We'd love to have that. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at a few other things you can get out. All of the stuff related to your your basketball jerseys or your basketball team. On Thursday, we're going to go to baseball, rep that very favorite baseball team of yours. And then Friday, it's soccer. So please, all the soccer stuff that you can possibly put on, maybe not the shin guards, but anything that you can put on to represent that favorite soccer team of yours, we'd love to see your pictures. So there are some words of the day that we've been going over, and we're going to ask you to spell these words out and practice spelling those words. Today's words are model, And modeling is obviously the theme of the week. We use computers often to do a lot of the modeling of what's happening around our world and to make predictions. And the environment is certainly one of the things that we try to focus and use models for to make predictions on what's going to happen in the environment if we use it or if it's changing, and the things that are occurring with that. We have on our website, and you can easily go to WJLA.com, and the Outside the Classroom section of our website would be able to give you some more information on what you can expect and anticipate with modeling. We've got lots of resources for you to use at home to try and model things that are all around us. Modeling shows up in toys. Modeling shows up in art as well. Modeling can be done through acting and through theater. And we also use modeling to make very interesting and unique predictions on the weather. So let me show you for an example. I'm a meteorologist, and as a meteorologist, we rely on predictions to help us determine what the weather's going to be like. So from a modeling perspective, we can look at and interpret different types of models, and the data that's interpreted from them can help us make a forecast. Now, this is a pretty hard map to interpret, and I wanted to make sure you understand that it's very difficult to perhaps pick out where you are on this map. But to use a model in weather, it relies on the idea of trying to figure out geography, where do you live, to figure out and model what the Earth looks like on the ground, what's on the Earth's surface, whether it's trees, whether it's mountains or grassland, or if it's urban and developed. And then we can also model what's happening high above our heads in higher levels of the atmosphere. So when we take all of those variables into account, it ends up showing us and can make predictions. This is a prediction, a model of what temperatures will be like over the next few days. And you'll notice that the warmer temperatures indicated in those warmer colors, orange and red and yellow, those warmer temperatures are further south, and the colder temperatures coming in from the top of the screen in the north are a great way to indicate where the colder air is going to be coming from and the things that are happening. So when you're looking at modeling, there are lots of ideas that you can use and do at home. If you wanted to model your environment, you could build what we call a terrarium. And an example of a terrarium showing up here when I just did a very quick search online is to build a little mini environment where you're trying to mimic what would be happening in a tropical or temperate or dry environment. And you can use a terrarium to model something that's happening. Now, I'm going to just dip under the camera there for a moment. You could use a jar at home to start modeling and looking at things that are going on in your environment. You know, one of the interesting things that I like to do, and this is a great example of something that you could do at home, if you just take a jar, and if you don't have a jar, maybe you could just take a plastic bag. I took a jar and just did a scoop of soil from the garden. There was nothing in the soil growing. I just simply took a scoop. There were no worms in there, but I did actually start to see, and I was curious if anything would grow. So I added some water to the soil, and I just left the soil here alone. And all of a sudden, you'll notice, and I'll start to bring this a little bit closer to the camera here so Mr. Rich, my wonderful photographer, would be able to help us out here, and photojournalist. We have roots that are growing and plants that have started to grow. Now, I don't know if this is a vegetable or what type of plant it is, but that is a great example of a very simple model that you can make predictions. Will plants grow in this? Will we see different types of plants? You could even measure the growth of the plants in your simple model. And then ultimately, if you keep it growing and you care for the plants that are in these jars or in this jar, well, you can keep measuring and charting the growth, and then ultimately, perhaps these little plants that are growing, and I had no idea that there were seeds in this soil to start, maybe they'll turn into something like a vegetable, or maybe it's just simply a weed that's growing in the soil. So you can build a very simple model using very simple ideas and things, but it helps to get us outside to explore the world around us and to bring that idea of simple modeling right to your home so that we can keep that learning process going and that you can look at and investigate modeling as it applies to all of the different types of life. We're on Facebook, we're online, we are as well on air, obviously, and please interact with us, let us know how we're doing. If you have a question on Facebook, hit us up. If you are watching us online, thank you so much, and please let us know how we can best serve you.
Let's just let them run amok. We're not ready for these schoolboys, cause they just don't give up.
What can I drink? See how mommy sigh. Clapping for the NHS can make them cry. Here's a little walk, there's a little ride. Sunshine is a bummer when we're stuck in time.
What they do when you begin
Let's respirate tonight.
everyone will need that scene. Tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow we'll discover what Tesco Online has got in store. One more door, one more day, one day more.
That is a wonderful rendition from a song from the musical Les Mis, and a look at how theater and acting can certainly help to model some of the things that are going on around the world and in life. That fantastic video comes from a fellow educator, Ben Marsh, and his family in Kent, England. Took the time to be very creative and come up with some words and lyrics to a very popular song, and that really was entertaining. Thank you to them for sharing and showcasing that awesome video. And I'll tell you what, I was just joking a few moments ago. It would take an act of very strong proportions to get my kids to do something like that. So we're on the idea of modeling, and where does modeling show up in life? There are lots of different ways to look at modeling and how it applies. A globe is a simple model. This is a beach ball, basically turned globe from our friends at National Geographic that were able to give this to me here. You can look at this and how it represents a model of where we live. That's an idea of a model, a simple model. But there are other things that you can do to bring modeling into the everyday world and things around us. Now, one of the items that I like to look at and do, and this is something I do with my environmental science classes, is we build what are called ecological pyramids. Now, you geometry purists out there would say that this is not a pyramid, it's a triangle. That's correct, yes. But we can use this as a model to represent what's happening out in the natural world around us. We've all heard of, and we've probably heard of, things called food chains. And food chains have different levels in them. And this is a great way to model what's happening in a food chain. And in a food chain, that first level is what we call a producer. These are the organisms that can make their own food through photosynthesis. And if you think about it, out in your yard, if you were to put a ruler down or a square down and measure, if you think about all the things that are around us organism-wise, the number of organisms, most of the organisms that you see through this window are actually producers. They're organisms, they're plants, and they make up the base of our food chain. We're going to be talking about and completing this coming up in just a few moments. Thank you for watching Outside the Classroom. The theme is modeling. Hit us up on Facebook. Let us know if you have any questions. Welcome back to Outside the Classroom. I am meteorologist Ryan Miller and science teacher too. I really want to make sure we emphasize a couple of things. The point of this show, Outside the Classroom, is to provide some easy-to-do activities to keep that learning process going while we're away from the classroom and away from school. And the biggest focus, and this is me coming to you as an educator, is to make sure we learn something new every day. If it's just one thing, that is a win. The focus is on learning. It's not on completing tasks and getting check marks. So please use this as a resource and let us know how we can provide even more activities and assets for you to keep that learning process going. We have a wonderful video for you, another great example of modeling. This comes from our friend Lucy Roundy in Arlington, Virginia, who took the idea of modeling and looked at modeling as it applies to the place where we live and our geography.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm going to tell you about models. To show you, I made a model of the geographic features and regions of Virginia. So to do that, I made homemade Play-Doh. You might be wondering, what's the difference between a model and a picture, and which is better? Well, the difference is that usually a picture is flat and a model is 3D or 4D, and you might be able to walk through the models. An example might be that if you have ever gone to the Air and Space Museum, you have probably noticed that there are a lot of models of airplanes and rockets. Some you can even walk through. Now, what makes a model better than just printing out a picture? Take the model I made, for example. If you just saw a picture, you wouldn't know that there are mountains in the sky blue or yellow parts, and that the green part is hilly. It would just look like they are all the same. If you just looked at a picture of a rocket, you wouldn't be able to see what's inside. If you want to make something like this, you can make your own Play-Doh by adding flour, water, and salt together. Stay safe, stay indoors, and have a great day.
Lucy Roundy, thank you so very much for sharing that wonderful video with us here at Outside the Classroom. And folks, if you're watching, whether it's online, on Facebook, or just simply on TV, please show us some video. Send us some video, I should say. We would love to show and showcase whatever it is you're doing at home to keep that learning process going. Lucy's example of a model of Virginia's geographic provinces, a perfect way to blend modeling into the idea of learning, and in a simple way at that. If you don't have clay or if you don't have Play-Doh at home, well, Lucy even mentioned the idea of how you can make Play-Doh using very simple ingredients from in the kitchen, and show us and showcase your models to us, please. We'd love to see them. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is another idea that you can simply do at home to get your kids looking and paying attention to the things that are happening all around wherever it is you live, whether it's an apartment building or a house. We have a little triangle that I put together here. It's a simple model representing what we would typically see in a normal and healthy environment. And if you think about it, we have the producers, the plants, the first trophic level, the first part of the food chain here, going up to the plant eaters, the consumers, secondary consumers. And if you think about the numbers of these organisms, there are lots of plants out there. There are only a few plant eaters like caterpillars. Well, there are only a couple of birds that would eat those caterpillars. And then what would be an organism that would eat a small bird? That's a question for you. Let us know if you have an answer. I'm Ryan Miller. This is Outside the Classroom. Thank you for watching. Thank you again for joining us on Outside the Classroom. We are looking at the idea of modeling as it applies to all facets of life. We've looked at models of our environment, models of our geology, and all of the geography wherever it is we live. We've made models of bridges to try and test the strength of those bridges. Simple ideas and activities that you can do at home to keep that learning process going. We have big time changes in the weather. It's a cold, chilly morning, and we were at 81 degrees a couple of days ago, folks, right outside of this porch. So one of the things we use modeling for is to make predictions on the weather. And modeling allows us to take a look at an area and determine what we think the weather could potentially be, the behavior of the atmosphere days from now. So this is our area. There is Washington, D.C. This is the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, state of Maryland, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But I want you to notice this. This is a model that's making a prediction on whether or not we're going to see precipitation. Now I'm going to progress through the day today, and if you'll notice, when we start to see some of these colors show up, this is valid here tonight heading into tomorrow morning. We've got some rain that's being predicted, but if you'll notice, it's green, and green is an indicator of rain. Blue is an indicator of snow. So this model is actually predicting that tonight and early tomorrow morning, we'll be seeing some flakes of snow, especially west of Washington, D.C. Here's Washington, into the Shenandoah Valley, West Virginia, parts of Pennsylvania. So this model's predicting rain tonight and maybe even some wet snow mixing in a certain place. But if you get further and further north and west of Washington, the elevation gets higher, the air gets colder, and that rain will actually turn over to snow. So here is a model predicting what we can expect here, which is some rain tonight and maybe some snow. But the best chance of seeing some rain, or I should say the best chance of seeing some snow, will be in the colder locations far from town. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, don't be surprised if you see some rain, but don't be really surprised if you actually see a little bit of wet snow. Middle of April, who'd have ever thought it? So let's go over a couple more things here to make sure we're good to go for today. We've got some words that we're asking you to spell. Those words are model, computer, and environment. Dust off that sidewalk chalk and write them on the sidewalk. Take a picture and show us that you can spell these words. We'd love to show you here on the show doing that. You can take a look at our activities that are online at WJLA.com, our Outside the Classroom website, all of the resources that you can use to keep doing all of the things we've done on this show in your home as we're outside and away from the classroom. I'm Ryan Miller. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon.